Hey there everyone, it's me, Benz, from Off the Map Gaming, and today I'm bringing a game back from the dead today with Dead Rising. This is an action hack and slash RPG that was originally an Xbox 360 exclusive when it first came out. Actually, it was supposed to be a launch title for the Xbox 360, but needed more time in the oven, so it came out in August of 2006, about a year after the 360's initial launch. They've released every game on Steam now, and the best ones are only $20 each. Actually, this game has only sold 1.8 million copies as of March 2020, according to Capcom's website, which means that it sold less than Dead Rising 3. Well, I can't let that stand. Originally, I wanted to talk about why the first two are so good and get into what made 3 and 4 worse by comparison, but instead, I think I just want to talk about the strengths of Dead Rising 1 and have you draw your own conclusions about why I might not like the other games as much. Oh, and if you're wondering why this might be advertised, I made a video on that. Link in the description. Oh, and look at that! An iCard up there. That might bring you to it too. So, when we're discussing a game, we're going to be using the same criteria we used in the Nights into Dreams video. Here's an iCard for that too, by the way. But I'm going to be combining movement and controls into one big section, the mechanics of the game. I'm also going to be adding to this list. We're going to be talking about gameplay loops in this video because Dead Rising is a prime example of that, map design, and I'm going to do my best to explain the 3 C's and how Dead Rising does them so well. We'll get there, don't worry. So let's start the game. We play Frank West, an intrepid photojournalist with a chip on his shoulder, and he's covered wars.
I've covered wars, you know.
He's received a tip that something is going on in Willamette, Colorado, and he's here to get the scoop on it.
That's right. Got a tip that something big's happening.
When he arrives, he finds the military putting up barricades, people being eaten in the streets, and buildings being destroyed. Awesome. He asks the pilot to land on the roof of the mall and come back in 3 days. But uh-oh, we've got military choppers on our tail. Whoops. Hope you didn't need whatever was in that briefcase, Frank. That thing is gone forever. We never see it again. He's greeted by, well, let's be, Frank here. This guy's the devil.
Almost as if everyone's already dead.
After talking to the devil man, we head into the mall to find survivors barricading the front entrance. Yeah, I'm sure that'll keep them out. This guy tells us to find something to help barricade the doors with.
This is no time to ogle pretty girls, son. Andale! Come on, pronto!
Yeah, okay, fine, I'm going, jeez. As we make it to the back of this area, we're attacked by a crazy old man.
You! Stop right there! Do you have any idea what you've done?
This lady tries to save her dogs from the zombies.
What are you thinking?
So this old lady has released the floodgates for zombies to get in. I think I might have been wrong earlier. This lady is the real devil in this game. Nothing would have happened without her. After they get in, we get into the first taste of this game. As the zombies flood in, we see a lot of notifications pop up on the screen that all the survivors we met are dead. And that's our first lesson of the game. Survivors are really bad at, well, surviving. We'll get into that later. If you've played this game, I know you have feelings about survivors. We'll get there. After fighting our way through the zombies, we get into the security room and...
Where are the others?
I don't know. I hope they got away.
As long as those things are in the mall, we'd better not use this door.
Jeez, that's a little dark. Otis the handyman here seals up the door to keep the zombies out while Brad finds another way into the mall. We climb through the vent and now the game can really begin. Alright, let's take a break from the story to discuss zombies for a minute. I get that zombies are overused and probably boring to a lot of people at this point, but I still like what zombies represent. They can represent a few things, from a capitalist society filled with mindless consumers to the breakdown of society and how the system we have in place is extremely fragile. This game goes with the former theme of consumers more than the latter, but there's definitely some of that in there. So let's get into the gameplay. I have a lot to say on this point. We'll be coming back to the story later, and I'll let you know when spoilers are coming so that you can jump out at the right time. Alright, let's get into some technical criticisms. The first thing we need to discuss are the mechanics of the game. I said this was an RPG, so what does that look like? How does it fare as a hack and slash, and what little nuances does this game have to offer? things like that. This is going to be somewhat of a combination of movement and controls because they coincide so well. Frank moves at a pretty slow pace to begin with, but he can gain speed as you level up. We'll talk about that later though. Frank is able to run, jump, and climb onto areas you wouldn't expect him to be able to. The climbing aspect lets you get into some pretty cool locations and can let you find secrets early in the game to help you out. It encourages exploration to the point where you might have seen the entire mall, but you aren't aware of the hidden weapons that are lying just out of reach. As for the attacking controls of the game, when Frank swings a weapon, he becomes locked into the animation which forces the player to time their strikes. If you start swinging a mailbox, for example, it takes a good couple of seconds before you can move around again and makes it much more tense when you're surrounded by zombies. This style of gameplay didn't really hit its peak until the Dark Souls games became really popular. In the same way as Dead Rising, the Souls games force players to think about their attacks before they make them because it's easy to get put into a bad situation if you attack constantly. Looking back at this game now, I can only think that it was ahead of its time with this style of attacking. As for Frank's special moves, where you have to press both the X and A button simultaneously, I found that they responded correctly most of the time, but there are definitely points where I wanted to rip off a zombie's head, but because I wasn't standing in just the right spot, Frank would either jump and kick, or swing his weapon. So that part could have used some work, but overall, they feel good and I have minimal complaints. Well, let's get into the genres of this game, starting with the action hack and slash portion. This game's big selling feature is that you can pick up almost anything in the mall and start using it to kill zombies. And I haven't seen any game outside of this series that lets you do that quite as well. You can pick up anything from benches, chairs, hangers, and masks to things like construction equipment, loose poles, guns, gardening tools, and toys. The idea that you won't ever be unarmed in the zombie apocalypse really rings through with this game. Like, do you know that old meme that said, "Quick, whatever's to your immediate left is your weapon in the zombie apocalypse"? Well, that's this game. Items have durability, so on your first playthrough, you're going to be swapping weapons out constantly. But don't worry, there's plenty of great weapons to cut zombies up with. I'll give a quick tip here for anyone who wants to pick this game up without giving too much away. Find the small chainsaw, and the books Entertainment, Engineering, and Criminal Biography. I'm not giving any more hints than that, you'll have to find them on your own if you want them. This basically puts the game on easy mode, and honestly, you should do a normal playthrough without it first for the really brutal experience of the game. Along with weapons, you can also find food around the mall. You can cook meat and pizzas to give you a lot of health, and you can combine food and blenders to give Frank some really fun power-ups. You can make blended drinks that make Frank ungrabbable by zombies, boost his speed, attract zombies, which is really good when you're escorting survivors, and make your spit damage enemies. Things like this make the game feel really arcade-like, but it makes the game fun, so can I really complain about that? Okay, well that's the action hack and slash portion of the game, but what about the RPG elements? Most of the RPG elements come from escorting survivors, which we'll get to in a minute, and the leveling system, and taking photos. Because let's not forget that Frank is a photojournalist. Setting up scenes to take pictures of is actually really fun to do, though it can get pretty hairy if you're trying to do it with a survivor as your subject. Why would you want to take photos outside of the joy of photography? Because it levels you up, that's why. Netting a big photo can earn you a level up right away, and there's no real downside to taking a lot of photos. You do have a limited amount of space on your camera, so you're going to have to pick your favorites, and your camera only has so many it can take before you have to recharge the batteries. But you have unlimited refills. You don't have to take photos either. It's a totally optional gameplay feature that only adds to the game if you want it to, and that's kind of rare. But let's talk about leveling. Okay, I might be the only one, but I think this leveling system is kind of genius. The way leveling works is that you get prestige points, or PP, for killing zombies, beating bosses, escorting survivors, and taking pictures. Again, not to give too much away, but there is a cult that shows up on day 2, and every cultist that you kill nets you 500 PPs each. That's a lot of PPs. Every time you level up, you get a random extra attribute, like extra square of health or more room in your inventory, or you can move faster. Leveling up can also let you learn special moves, like walking on zombies, better ways to get zombies off of you, and some hand-to-hand skills like jump kicks and zombie takedowns. Walking up to a zombie and disemboweling them or crushing their skull against the ground is so satisfying. Sure, in other games you can pick what skills you want, like the later games in this series, But I find that the random level ups only increase the replayability of this game. It ensures that you won't have the same playthrough starting from level 1, and you'll have to adapt to that. And isn't that the core of gaming? You're put into a situation and have to adapt to the world so that you can survive in it. I don't know, maybe I'm getting too philosophical here. But yeah, while you can't pick your— oh god! Ah! Jeez, dude, lay off, I'm trying to take you to safety. Alright, fine, let's talk about the survivors for a quick minute. If you've heard anything about this game, it's the bad AI, and it lives up to its reputation. Escorting survivors can sometimes feel like you're walking your goldfish through a corn maze, and the corn is hungry. You will constantly have people getting stuck on doors, running the wrong way, or they might just run headlong into a horde of zombies and get themselves killed or turned. Having a survivor get turned instead of just dying feels a lot worse too, because you might just have to kill them and to put them out of their misery. And how do you know where these people are in the mall? Well, some of them you just kinda stumble across, like this guy who got stuck in the back of the closet before the outbreak, and most of the time you're told by Otis, one of the mall security guards back in the security room. You might remember him sealing the door to safety from all those people who may or may not have died. Heartless bastard. What really sucks about this is when Otis calls you, you might be in the middle of something really important. Otis, I don't have time to talk. I have to deal with this crazy chick on a motorcycle trying to kill me. No, you're right, Otis. I can put my thousands of zombie problems on hold for you. It was rude of me to hang up on you just because I was grabbed from behind by a zombie. Go on about the person you saw on the monitor. He also calls you for every time that you enter a new area of the mall, but that largely goes away after the first day. Now, I'm not saying that this was intentional, but if you immerse yourself enough to believe that you are in the middle of a zombie movie, I could see some characters acting like this. When people are put into scary situations, they can't think straight, and usually they make bad decisions. That would explain why they're more willing to rush a zombie on their own and not stick with you. Again, it's probably not intentional. It definitely isn't intentional. But it can help the immersion if you can believe it. But when they get stuck on doors, it's still really annoying. I suppose since we're talking about annoying things, let's talk about the graphics. Like I said in the Nights into Dreams episode, I'm not a graphics snob. And there's not a whole lot that pops out to me in this game. The graphics are really good for 2006, but I really hate the way that people's mouths move in this game. Each tooth looks way too big and kind of reminds me of that Nightmare Sonic movie trailer. The lip sync isn't great at times. That last one wasn't good, but I think one of those was. And people's eyes can pop out of their heads. But again, kind of like with the survivors, it probably wasn't intentional, but it does add this subtle, uncanny valley horror element to the game that I kinda love. I think that now is probably the best time to talk about the nighttime as well, since it kind of ties into the graphics of the game. You see, back in the day, game systems didn't have so much memory that we could render every hair on a character's arm to respond to a slight breeze blowing by, so the game had to make do with what hardware it had. In Dead Rising, the thing that takes the most memory are the zombies. You'll be walking through the mall and occasionally see zombies spawn off in the background to make the areas more populated. At night, they largely bypass this problem by making the whole mall go dark. And because you can't see as far away, there are more zombies directly in front of you to deal with. On top of that, all zombies get these glowing red eyes, double their attack power and hit points, making them a much larger threat than in the day. Some of them even move faster as well. On top of all this, all the nice cheery mall music goes away and gets replaced with ambient sounds and zombie noises, transforming the mall into a much more hostile place than it is in the daytime. There's also some fun places to visit in the mall. The mall has 8 main areas to visit, and each of them has a distinct layout and style to them so that you're never going to get mixed up as to where you are. The entrance plaza looks like your standard mall, while the north plaza is under construction and you won't be getting these two areas mixed up. Every area in this game is completely unique and makes it more fun to explore. This in itself is a really smart idea because the less I have to bring up the map, the better the level design is. The only times where I have to bring up the map is when I'm figuring out where the next mission is. Just exploring the mall for one in-game day will get you to the point where you know the basic mall layout like the back of your hand, and you should be able to plan your routes accordingly. This is really good map design and shows that the developers really knew what they were doing with the layout of the mall. Every shop has something to offer, and everything in those shops fits its theme. You can find bowling balls and skateboards in sports shops, and toy laser swords in the children's toy shops. There's other things to find in these shops too, like costume changes. You can have Frank in different styles of suits, shoes, glasses, masks, children's clothes, and dresses. Completing achievements can get you bonus weapons and clothes as well. But I'm getting off track, so let's get back to the map. I have a few complaints about the map design. For example, the food court really doesn't have much food in it. Instead, if you want food, you're going to have to head to the North Plaza's grocery store. I'm a little lost on why you would do this. It makes me never want to visit the food court, even though I think it has a great aesthetic to it. The main story doesn't have you going to the Alfresca Plaza either. There's one mission where you have to run through it, but other than that, you never really have to come back to either of these locations. It's a shame too, because I really like the look of both of them. Oh well. Oh crap! I'm getting mobbed! Help! Well, I'm dead. Which means that I have to start from my last save. We need to talk about the fail states in games for this. A fail state in a game is an important thing to consider when making a game. How much do you punish a player for failing? Generally, a fail state is when you die, but there can be other criteria for a fail state, such as failing to protect your escort or not defending your base well enough. Things like that. Older games have an extra layer of fail state for when you lose all of your lives. Generally, that would reset your progress either entirely or more than usual. Super Mario World on the SNES is a good example of this. Losing a life on a level would send you back to the map screen where you could pick another level or try again. But losing all of your lives would send you back to the previous save, generally at a castle or at the beginning of a world. Most games follow this criteria of simply resetting progress, but some take it in a slightly different direction. I've mentioned the Souls games in this video already, but they have a really strange kind of offshoot of a fail state that really sticks with players. Not only do you get sent back to your last bonfire, but you also lose all your souls. They do more than just take away your most recent progress, but some of the cumulative process you've made up to that point, which is why people view those games as being really hard. You can retrieve your souls after you die, but upon a second death, all that progress is wiped out and you are essentially starting from zero. It's a really clever mechanic that can both be soul-crushing, pun intended, and really raise the stakes if you had a lot of souls in the bank. If I wanted to point to a bad fail state, in the Elder Scrolls and Fallout series, if you died, you have to restart from your last save. But usually, players are saving often enough that it's not really a big deal, and even if they aren't, the game will autosave every time they go to a new area. These games actually allow players to save right in the middle of a battle if they want. This causes players to see death as a mere nuisance rather than an actual threat. This changes the way that players will play the game. A player will rush into battle with no forethought because if they fail, they can just reload their most recent save with no consequences at all. In Dead Rising, you can only save if you lie down for a rest or visit a restroom, meaning that you are not only saving less often, but probably farther away from your goal as well. The other really difficult thing about Dead Rising is that you can potentially screw yourself permanently by saving at the wrong time. We're going to get into this in a little bit, but there is a constant timer in this game, and if you save without thinking and don't give yourself enough time to make it to the mission, then you might have to load an even earlier save, or maybe even start the whole game over. What's more, when this game first came out on the Xbox 360, there was only one save slot. So if you messed up, there was no loading an earlier save. You just had to deal with the consequences of your actions. On Steam now, though, there are 5 slots to choose from, so that problem is largely gone from the current game. This creates a constant tension while playing because realizing that you're at low health, surrounded by zombies, and haven't saved in a while is really stressful. Not only that, but choosing the right times to go out of your way to save, and making sure that you have enough time to get to where you need to go from the save point, adds an extra layer of complexity that only enhances the experience of being in a zombie apocalypse. Whew. Alright, it's about time I start talking about gameplay loops. In gaming, there are a set of actions that a player will be doing throughout the game over and over, and if that loop is good, that largely contributes to making a good game. A classic example of this is Mario 64. When developing that game, Nintendo first put Mario in a room and made sure that moving Mario around was fun, by giving him plenty of movement options, little animations like turning around, and the lean he does when making a softer turn really brings Mario to life. Since moving Mario around is the largest part of the game, they made sure that doing so would be fun. This brings us to our first loop, the core gameplay loop. This is what the player is doing on a second-by-second basis. In Mario games, that would be moving Mario around in a satisfying manner. In Dark Souls games, it's when you're battling an opponent and learning their attack patterns and striking back. And in Dead Rising, the core gameplay loop is killing zombies. I've already mentioned it, but there are a lot of ways to kill zombies in this game using items around the mall. The core gameplay loop in Dead Rising is chopping, smashing, and shooting zombies. We'll talk about why this loop is so good in a minute, but let's keep discussing these loops first. The secondary loop of a game is what the player is doing on a slightly longer term. Bringing it back to Mario 64 and Dark Souls, in Mario, the secondary loop is getting the star or progressing to the next level. Dark Souls achieves a satisfying secondary loop by giving the player a sense of relief when they see that bonfire off in the distance and finally lighting it. In Dead Rising, the secondary loop is how you fill your time, finding new and better weapons to equip yourself with, rescuing survivors, and best of all, the psychos. Psychos in Dead Rising are boss battles with people who have gone crazy due to the stress of zombies eating people or watching friends and family be turned into a zombie from a bite. These guys are generally really tough if you're not equipped very well, and each of them has a unique boss battle style. Adam the Clown has twin chainsaws, throws knives, and even releases balloons to kill you. Cliff, the hardware store owner, is having a PTSD flashback to the Vietnam War and uses guerrilla tactics by jumping into the underground vents and throwing pipe bombs and flares at you. These guys are no joke, and I'm going to be talking about them more when we get into characters. But back to the loops, the secondary loop of doing smaller missions in between the big ones is really satisfying when you pull it off. Finally, we have the third loop. Sometimes called the tertiary loop, is what the player is generally doing on an hour-to-hour basis. I might as well finish the examples with Mario and Dark Souls here, huh? Well, in Mario, the tertiary loop is making it to the next world, and in Dark Souls, it's beating bosses, exploring, and making it to the next area of the game. So, what's the tertiary loop in Dead Rising? It's planning your time in the mall. Remember, you only have 3 days to get your scoop, and this game means it. From the word go, you have a clock that is counting down to the end of the game. All your missions are tied to this clock, so if you aren't at the mission when the timer runs out, the truth fades into darkness and you can keep playing, but you're going to need to reload a save if you wanted to finish the main story. But if you saved and put yourself into an impossible situation, then I guess that kinda sucks. Try again in another playthrough. I don't know. This loop is so important to this game because it affects everything you do. You have to plan your routes to maximize the amount of survivors you save, make sure that you have enough food and weapons to keep you going, and that you won't run out of time on your way back to the main mission. If there was a staple of the series, it's the 3-day time limit. One of the biggest problems that a lot of critics raised over Dead Rising 4 is that they took out the time limit on the game for some reason. There's plenty else wrong with that game, like the leveling system, the massive plot holes it brings up, the world being way too big, and don't even get me started on the boring psychos, but taking away the timer really dumbed down the whole game, because most of the tension in Dead Rising comes from not being able to know if you're going to be able to save everyone because of this damn timer. Oh, some guy's cowering in the corner of Alfresca Plaza. Well, I don't have time to deal with him because I have 3 more convenient missions that I need to do first. Realizing that you can't save everyone because there just isn't enough time really brings you into the game. Sure, it's possible, but you're not going to do it without a walkthrough on your first try. So, on subsequent playthroughs, you're going to get much better at managing your time, knowing how to bring down the psychos and make it to where you want to go. Not to mention, you keep your level on follow-up playthroughs, making things a lot easier as you experience the apocalypse again and again. It only adds to the replayability of the game, whereas I don't feel like I ever need to replay Dead Rising 4 again, because I did absolutely everything in the first playthrough. I grinded to level 100, fought all of the psychos, made all the combo weapons, and beat the main storyline. There's nothing left for me there. But with Dead Rising 1, I can always come back and ask what the most efficient way to beat the game is. I made a big stink about the timer in Nights into Dreams, but the difference here are the stakes of the game. In Nights into Dreams, if you run out of time, you revert back to the child and have to go become knights again. This has no effect on the overall gameplay because I was able to still get a B on a part after my timer ran out, so why was it there? The other part that really annoys me about that timer is that Nights into Dreams should be a pretty low-stress game. Just gliding around, collecting orbs, and blowing up jellyfish things. Man, that was such a stoner game. Meanwhile, in Dead Rising, the timer affects everything. The stakes are so high because not being in the right place at the right time is the difference between beating the game or not. Timers inherently add stress to a game, and in a zombie survival game, it's crucial to keep the stress level high. They could have just had a health bar in Nights into Dreams, and that would have worked just as well as the timer. The gameplay loops of a game are the most important thing in a game, and of those, the most important is the core gameplay loop. So what makes Dead Rising's core gameplay loop fun? Well, that has to do with the 3 C's. The 3 C's are context, challenge, and catharsis. We're going to start with catharsis since I think it ties in so well with the core gameplay loop of Dead Rising. Like I said, the core gameplay loop is killing zombies, and the main reason why this is so fun is that there is a lot of catharsis in killing zombies in a variety of ways. You can pop their heads with a scythe, mow them down with a lawnmower or a machine gun, chop them up with chainsaws, or hit them with toy swords and boomerangs. When you find a really fun way to kill a zombie, it gives a sense of catharsis that other games just can't, and the variety of weapons just increases that catharsis. Let's keep going with this Mario and Dark Souls thing to relate catharsis to those games for a moment. In Mario, the sense of catharsis comes from when you beat a particularly hard level that's been giving you a tough time, and this has become more common with Mario Maker. And in Dark Souls, the sense of catharsis comes from either beating a really hard boss or killing an enemy in one hit later in the game. Catharsis is just a release of repressed emotions that provides a relief from those emotions. With Dead Rising, the release of emotions comes easy by killing a single zombie, but there's something about looking back on a room that was once filled with zombies and seeing nothing but eviscerated corpses. Explaining why something is fun is difficult because it's so subjective, despite what other people might say.
At the end of my assessment, I said that the film was overall objectively bad in terms of filmmaking. It is of poor quality.
Okay, I gotta do a little aside here. Just 1 minute. 1 minute of your time, I promise. Alright, here's the deal, Mueller. Is it Mueller? Mueller? I don't care. Here's the deal. If you say that something is objectively bad, you are objectively wrong. There is a huge difference between subjective and objective, and opinion is the major part of that. Saying that you think something is bad is an opinion. I don't know how else to explain this to you. Even if you dissect it down to its most basic things, basic little pieces, right? There's no way that you can tell me that something is objectively bad. It's not a thing. I'm sorry. Because here's the thing. Even if you think it's bad, if somebody else thinks it is a good thing, that makes it an opinion. If somebody can reasonably say that something is good that you think is bad, that makes it an opinion. Let's say, I like green, and you say, no, green's a bad color. Well, that's an opinion. There's an example for you. It's the same thing. It's the same thing. I don't know what else to say. You're just objectively wrong. Anyway, that's not what this video is about. Let's get back to that. The second C of the 3 C's is the challenge of the game, and we've already discussed how the game is challenging in multiple ways. And I mean, do I even really have to relate this to Dark Souls? There are the psychos, and the timer being able to screw you over at any moment. But one thing I haven't really talked about are the zombies themselves. Individually, they're not a threat. They're more like a joke than anything. But as with any zombie game, the problem comes from when you get surrounded by them. Sure, you can break out pretty quick, and taking down a group isn't the hardest thing, but they just keep coming. And really, I think that this is the real appeal of zombies in general. There's just no end to them.
Well, shit.
A lot of games have different types of zombies, and that can be fun, but I think I prefer if they all stay consistent. Some games, like Left 4 Dead, have fast zombies, agile zombies, tank zombies, long-reach zombies, and crazy powerful boss zombies. I'm not saying that isn't fun, but the slow, dumb zombies offer the most cathartic kills, and that's what Dead Rising is all about. They may be less of a threat, but there's so many that eventually one of them is going to take a trip to the Frank Buffet. Finally, we have the context of the game, and generally this means the story, but we're still not quite ready to talk about the main questline of the game. That doesn't mean that we can't talk about a portion of this, though. The main context of this game is that you are in the zombie apocalypse and need to survive. You have tools around you at your disposal, and you are trying to get as many people out alive as you can. Without even going into the main plot of the game, it's a pretty fun concept on its own. We have a couple other things to talk about before we get into the story, though, so if you don't want spoilers, you can stick around just a little bit longer. I guess we can talk about the difficulty of the game. It's kind of hard to give this game a difficulty curve, but I'll do my best. The difficulty of this game generally goes down as you play it if you're just sticking with the main missions. At the beginning, you have no idea where to find good weapons, you're under-leveled for most encounters, and the bosses can be pretty difficult to deal with, borderline unfair. But by the end of the game, you have a good sense of what the mall layout is, you understand the importance of time management, and there are knives, guns, and power tools coming out of every orifice of Frank's body. But I guess this just goes to show that you, the player, are better at handling the zombie apocalypse as it goes on, because this is your story. I will say that the final 12 hours of the game really ramps up the difficulty, but we'll get into that once we start getting into spoilers. So, to drop you off at the last possible second, let's talk about the music and sound design. The music comes in two flavors: nice light mall music and metal. I could see myself working out to songs like these. If you like this kind of music, I'd suggest giving this soundtrack a shot. And if we're going to talk about music, then we have to talk about the most well-known song in this game. Anyone who has played through the first 12 hours of the game knows this song and dreads it. After the first 12 hours of the game, you'll probably have to go outside, where you'll get ambushed by 3 convicts in a jeep with a machine gun. The first time you encounter these guys, if you're trying to do side missions, it's also likely that you'll have survivors to protect as well, making this park extremely stressful to run through. Even if you kill them, that only takes care of them for about a day, and they'll resurrect and be back tomorrow. This just sucks. That's all there is to it. Okay, time to kick some people out. We're getting into the story now, and I'm going to try and lay off as many spoilers as possible, but there's inevitably going to be a few, so if you don't want some of the main plot spoiled, go play the game and come back after you're done. Are they gone? Are you sure? Alright. If you're still here, that means that you either have beaten the game or don't care about the story of this game getting spoiled. Well, it's pretty good, I'll say that much. I thought about spoiling the whole story of this game, but instead, I'll just give you the highlights. As goofy as the gameplay is, being able to put masks on zombies and killing zombies in funny ways, the plot of the story takes itself very seriously. You remember the old man that attacked us at the beginning of the game? Yeah, that guy. Well, he's pretty much the whole reason that zombies exist. He was doing experiments in a Central American town called Santa Cabeza that reduced the cost of breeding cows by making zombie cows. Putting aside how disgusting that sounds, at some point there was a breach in the facility and the whole town was infected, so the American military came to clean up the mess. Unfortunately for them, they missed a pair of siblings, Carlito and Isabella here. Carlito swore revenge on America, I guess, and his faithful sister was there to help him infect the world with zombies. After the breakout in the town we're in, Willamette, Colorado, the Department of Homeland Security gets called in, and that brings us to Jesse and James, Brad, here. They're here to capture Carlito and his sister, as well as bring Dr. Barnaby to safety. I just want to point out that watching Brad deal with Barnaby is hilarious because this is exactly how I'd expect this interaction to go.
Sir, if you could just kindly come with us, we can wrap this whole thing up.
No, I'm not leaving until you can
Absolutely,
guarantee
sir.
me
If
safe
you
passage
just
to
open
these...
this gate, Just open this gate. It's for your protection.
I am not opening any gate.
As we move through the main plot of the game, we eventually rescue Barnaby and bring him back to the safe house, interrogate him, but uh-oh, he's been bitten and tries to attack Jesse. We kick him off of her, and he gives his final words as he turns into a zombie.
That research was absolutely necessary.
Barnaby has no regrets about his actions in Santa Cabeza at all. You will not be missed, you old fuck. So if we want the story about what's happening in Willamette, we're gonna have to find another source of information. We track down Isabella, convince her to talk with us, and she says she will get us an interview with Carlito, the man, the myth, the terrorist himself. Unfortunately, instead of getting an interview, Isabella gets a bullet in the leg, and defects to our side. We carry her back to the safe house, but on our way there, we hear Carlito say that he's going to his last resort. Luckily, Isabella knows exactly what he's talking about. Apparently, he's filling the maintenance tunnels with gas and has placed bombs in the trucks down there set off to go in a matter of hours, maybe less. This is where I should mention that there are multiple endings to this game. If you fail to get all the bombs out in time, the game ends and you get the worst ending, where the world is infected with the zombie virus due to the explosion sending parasites into the atmosphere. Yeah, this game has multiple endings depending on what you do. Technically, if you start the game and don't touch it for 6 hours straight, you can get the second best ending where Frank gets on the helicopter and flies away to safety. Anyways, if we do get the bombs out of the tunnel, we get a cutscene of a fight between Carlito and Brad. And unfortunately, Brad loses. It's not required, but if you go back to find Brad, you get a hidden cutscene of him with his belly cut open and turning into a zombie.
Perfect.
Finding this cutscene also changes the next cutscene with Jesse in a very small, subtle way.
As soon as Brad gets his hands on that terrorist, I guess it'll be case closed, huh?
It's little polishes like that I love. So, we track down Carlito, he dies, and we're able to take down the jammer that Carlito had in place. Jesse calls in reinforcements, but that just means that the military is coming to kill us now. Apparently, Jesse did get bit by Barnaby and kills 2 armed guards all by herself. I'm sorry, Jesse, but this has to be done. Ha!
Good.
With no real goal left anymore, we waste time until a helicopter arrives to take us away. Oh, Will, god damn it. Guess that helicopter wasn't as reliable as we thought. Damn. Get up, Frank. Don't let the zombies get you. You've survived this long and you're giving up now? Come on. Oh, thank God. Isabella's here. Frank passes out and we end up back in the other hideout. Yeah, looks like we're going into overtime. Apparently we got bit. Yeah, not sure how that happened, but Isabella thinks she can find a cure. We gather some items, but this proves a little difficult with the military running around trying to murder us. But we find our way back and get cured by Isabella after finding a bunch of items and 12 bees. And we find our way out through the clock tower. At the end of the tunnel, we find more military. Oh boy. We open up a gate full of zombies so that they get distracted for a little bit so that we can steal their wheels. And we're off to the final boss. The commander here is the same one that cleaned up Santa Cabeza, and he's here to do it again. Well, not on my watch. He falls into the horde of zombies surrounding us as Frank screams at the sky. And that's the game. We get a small after-credits synopsis of what happened in the post-game. Frank made it out with the information on zombies. The government takes partial responsibility of Santa Cabeza, but denies that they had anything to do with the Willamette breakout. And after a while, the public stops caring. Isn't that just true to life? And yet he still complained that his belly was not full. And doesn't that quote just sum up the themes of this game? The main themes of this game are very anti-consumer. You know, it's interesting what Dr. Barnaby said, because it's true.
We were trying to mass produce cattle. Do you have any idea how much meat Americans consume in a single day?
The time of this game's release back in 2006, Americans were consuming 28.1 billion pounds of beef per year. The overall consumption started to fall after 2006, however it started to rise back up after 2015, and in 2019 we ate 27.3 billion pounds of beef. We haven't overtaken what we've eaten in 2006, but it's getting pretty close again. It's hard to talk about this game without bringing up 1978's Dawn of the Dead. That was one of the first, and definitely the most popular, anti-consumerist zombie films.
Night of the living dead has ended. Dawn of the dead is here.
Just like Dead Rising, it takes place inside of a mall, and its main themes deal with how Americans consume and consume, just like zombies. And in the same way that zombies in Dead Rising are attracted to the mall for some reason, Peter in the movie says that the zombies are attracted to its mall because it's something familiar and they just want to be there.
What are they doing? Why do they come here?
Some kind of instinct, memory, what they used to do. This was an important place in their lives.
It's more of an explanation than we get in this game, but I think it's an apt comparison. The last thing I want to get into is where this game's story really shines: the characters. The characters in this game really show the strength of the writing. No one in this game is good or bad person entirely. Even Frank himself doesn't seem to be invested in actually saving the people. He's just there to get his scoop and get out. But as time goes on, he gets more invested in the story, going as far as to remove the bombs that Carlito had placed inside the mall. And speaking of Carlito, while it's easy to label him as just a bad guy, let's keep in mind why he's doing what he's doing. His entire village was wiped out and covered up by an American government. When Santa Cabeza was destroyed, the US government said that it was due to a large-scale drug trading in the area. If that happened to my town, yeah, I might be a little pissed. Even the psychos have a good amount of character to them. Adam the Clown just wanted people to laugh again, and went crazy hearing the screams of people as they died. So he decided to put them on the roller coaster so that they sound more like screams of joy. Cliff's PTSD attack ends after his battle, and we get a shot of a photo of his family that he keeps in his wallet. The reason why he went crazy was seeing his granddaughter get eaten by zombies. Stephen the clerk had to deal with one too many looters destroying his store. Each one of these characters was once a nice, agreeable person until they had to do unspeakable things in this horrible situation. Considering Frank's body count after all is said and done, it's hard to not think of him as sort of a psychopath himself. And I have to bring up my other largest problem with Dead Rising 4. They largely removed the characterization of psychos by removing the cutscenes that explained why they went crazy. I mean, look at this guy. He's the Pumpkin King, but I don't really have a relationship with him. I can't believe I'm saying this. He should be one of the coolest bosses in the series, but he's just some guy with a scythe and a pumpkin for a head. But I just don't care. Dead Rising 3 started to lean away from psychos first, but at least they were unique, interesting, and all had introductory cutscenes so that I could see why they needed to be put down, even if there weren't that many psychos in the game.
Spirit of the universe has slaughtered my happiness, and so I must slaughter too. All who disrupt my garden of peace shall die!
This video is already really long at this point, so let's review. This game has difficult gameplay, really satisfying kills, and a good story to boot. This game is my second favorite zombie game, only because Dead Rising 2 added in more weapons, combo weapons, and still had pretty fun story even if you could substitute in a cardboard cutout of Nicolas Cage as Chuck, and you wouldn't see that much of a difference in his character.
But never forget, chump, I'm number one! Yeah, you're on fire.
You might be wondering, why don't I do a video on that? Well, because Dead Rising 1 is where it all started. This game set the standard for this series, and I want them to be this good again, at least. with more weapons, more zombie hordes, more psychos. I don't need the map to be huge to have a good time. In fact, I think one of the largest downfalls of Dead Rising 3 is that they made the map too big. And zombies largely aren't a threat because it's not really a competition when you're playing zombie versus car. So, if you want to get into the zombie genre, start with this game. Play number 2 if you're feeling it, and then stop after that. Maybe try Resident Evil or something, I don't know. But in any case, thanks for watching everyone. We come out with gameplay videos every weekday and we do streams every once in a while. I've made a few other videos like this as well. You can check out my first attempt at this style with the Nights into Dreams video, and I also made one on Undertale called Why You Climb the Mountain. It's more about why you play video games and watch movies and the like. We also have a Discord, and there should be a link in the description. Stay tuned for the next episode about a train conductor and his daughter.